namely that antidepressants often do not do what they promise and are in fact causing harm to many.
Dr. Steve Hotze is suing over Obamacare's employer mandate.
It's time for a wellness revolution. Brought to you by Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Honest discussion on maintaining health and wellness naturally to enjoy a better quality of life.
He's the doctor fighting to let you keep your doctor.
Now, Dr. Stephen Hotze.
Welcome to Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution. This is Stacey Banfield here with Dr. Stephen Hotze, founder of the Hotze Health and Wellness Center. Hey, everybody needs a health coach, and everybody needs to hear the podcasts that we have. So I just want to remind everybody to go to hotzepodcast.com. That's Hotze podcast.com. And I was also reminded that if you're watching us on YouTube, you can just click right there to become a subscriber. It is so easy. So, interesting topic today. It's one that a lot of people suffer from. The where am I? What am I doing? Where was I headed? It's called brain fog and memory loss. And while we kind of make fun of it a little bit, you wander into a room and you're like, I know there was a reason why I was walking in here, but I forget. That's kind of funny, but it's not so funny if you have more serious conditions where you forget how to drive home maybe, or other issues like that are really cutting into the quality of your life and making you have concerns. So Dr. Hotze, maybe you could speak to the audience a little bit about brain fog and memory loss.
Right, and I want to reiterate and underscore what you said earlier, Stacey. I believe that everybody needs a health coach. You need a doctor and a staff of professionals who'll coach you onto a path of health and wellness naturally without using pharmaceutical drugs, so that as you mature in age, you feel healthy and well. You're full of enthusiasm. You have vim and vigor. You got to get up and go, and you're optimistic about life and enjoying life. If you're going to be alive, you might as well be alive, right? Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
Instead of being part of the walking wounded or the nearly dead, my goodness, linger for 20 or 30 years and have a poor quality of life. Well, today we're going to talk about loss of mental sharpness, mental acuity, which most commonly, in lay terms, I hear it particularly from women. They go, I have brain fog. So you can imagine a fog. All of us can think of a foggy day and how you can hardly see the buildings or the cars and the surroundings. That's brain fog. You can imagine having that fog in your brain. And some of you, and probably many of you, have experienced this in brain fog. We see it commonly in women, particularly as they march through their menstrual life, as their hormones become imbalanced, in decline. That's a common feature and a complaint that I see in so many individuals, is the lack of mental clarity, mental sharpness, memory loss, which they describe as brain fog. So I'm sure there have been times, as Stacey has discussed, where, you've wanted to introduce a friend to another friend and you can't remember their name. And you're grasping.
Awkward.
You know where they live, you know what color their car is, but you just can't get their name out. Or you've gone into a room, you had something to do, and you walk in the room and just go like, what was I doing? So you walk out and enter it again, hoping it'll come back and click what you were doing. Or maybe you're balancing a checkbook and you have a hard time working with the figures. I had a gal that worked for us by the name of, it didn't work for us, I'm sorry, it was a guest of ours years ago, by the name of Terry Jaggers. Terry is, and I'm not saying anything out of skill because Terry's been on numerous of our videos, and Terry was a wonderful gymnastic coach and had a gymnastic team that won nationwide awards. And that was what she did for a living. She had this gymnastics school. And when she got into her 40s, she was having problem balancing her checkbook. She was having problems remembering what room was in what room and the kids' names. And she was really concerned that her mental status was declining. A little more history on her. She had had numerous miscarriages, had been unable to conceive as well, had no kids, and she was in her 40s. She's a wonderful woman. She and her husband adopted a lot of children, are big into adoption, and they're wonderful, wonderful folks. But she was having problems. And her family was concerned about her, so they took her down to Baylor College of Medicine, to the Alzheimer's Center. And they did studies on her, and they said, she has early Alzheimer's, and we're going to need to put her on all these drugs. Well, Terry said she went home and she prayed. Lord, help me. Help me. I don't know what's wrong. I don't want to have to take all these drugs. Can you help me? Well, I happen to have a TV ad that popped up. And she went, oh, my goodness. Right after she had prayed, that morning, there it was on the TV. She called up, and she came out and described her problem. She was fatigued. Her mental sharpness was shot. It was dull as a old knife. She had brain fog, couldn't think clearly, couldn't sleep, had body aches and pains, couldn't function, was unable to get pregnant and carry pregnancies to term. She just felt terrible. So we evaluated her, and she had all the classical symptoms of hypothyroidism, many of them. Plus, she had, at her age, she had some hormonal imbalances. And so what we did was we balanced out her hormones, started her on some natural thyroid, got her on some vitamins and minerals, got her on a good eating program, and then an exercise program. That's basically our regimen. Good, healthy paleo eating program. For many people, we'd even recommend ketogenic, which is like paleo on steroids, a higher fat content diet with vegetables and meats. That's a paleo diet. More fats mean you're going to be more on a ketogenic diet, so you're not burning sugar, but you're burning your fat is producing the energy within the power plants in the cells. And second thing we do is we replenish the hormones, because the hormones, particularly thyroid, activates the power plants within your cells. Third thing we do is use vitamins and minerals and nutrients to help you detoxify. When you're toxic, your power plants in your cells are sick and they can't produce enough energy. Besides, those vitamins and minerals are also needed to activate and to be utilized by your power plants in order to produce energy that's needed for the biochemical processes in the cells. And then the exercise is important because it stimulates the mitochondria, your power plants, to produce energy. That's a simple 4-point regimen that we have people on. So that's what we put Terry on. And she did remarkable. As a matter of fact,
how remarkable.
I'm going to ask the president of our company to come in, and I want to show you a picture. I want you to see a picture of this. So anyway, she started to feel so well and lost weight, trimmed down. She looked like $1 million, and she was 45 years old. And one of her daughters said, Mom, this is an adopted daughter, Mom, why don't you run for Mrs. Texas? Now, she's 45, okay, right? She's running against 25 and 30-year-old women. And guess what? That year that she came in and got on the program, she was elected Mrs. Texas. And 2 years later, she was at 47, she was in the Mrs. USA contest, and she won that.
That's incredible.
And she went back to law school, and this woman has done tremendous, and she's teaching at one of the local colleges, and she has done absolutely fantastic. But had she stayed with her conventional physicians, they would have put her on a bunch of drugs, antidepressants, and then drugs for Alzheimer's, none of which have proved to be effective whatsoever and don't change the course. As a matter of fact, I remember I had a gal come into my office one time. Her daughter brought her in, and I said, what happened to Betty? And she was drooling. She couldn't put two sentences together. She'd been a guest of ours for 3 or 4 years and had done well. But one of her friends had convinced her to go see her doctor because her doctor had helped her with her memory. Well, the doctor diagnosed her with Alzheimer's, which she didn't have, early Alzheimer's, and she was about 65, and put her on a bunch of Alzheimer medication. So I asked her daughter, what in the world's going on? She told me the story. I said, let me see the drugs she's on. And she showed them to me. I said, do me a favor. Take Betty off all those drugs. Come back and see me in a week. The next week, Betty, who, by the way, is a very strong Baptist, and she goes all over the world teaching Bible studies, came back in, and she was lucid as you or me. She was bright, sharp as a tack, and that was several years ago. And I had wondered, because I don't see guests primarily, we have other providers that see our guests. I hadn't seen Betty in 2 or 3 years. And one time I was coming back wondering what had happened to Betty Tapscott, and pulled into my parking place after lunch, and the car's pulling away, and I look, and it's Betty. I go, Betty, what are you doing? She said, I'm on my way to Romania. I'm doing Bible studies over there. And so here's a woman that had been diagnosed, like Terry Jaggers, with Alzheimer's, and the doctors had wanted to put her on Alzheimer medication, and all she needed, well, the Alzheimer medication made Betty Tapscott, terrible, where she couldn't even put two words together. And Terry didn't take it. Both of them were on our health and wellness program, and they were sharp as a tack, bright, alert, and living full, rich lives.
You know, Dr. Hotze, those are great stories. It's also a bit terrifying because they were both misdiagnosed with Alzheimer's and put on Alzheimer's drugs, which begs the question, if that happened with those two ladies, how many other people are being misdiagnosed that could be helped
with natural approaches to health? So here's some of the key causes of loss of mental sharpness and mental acuity. We mentioned thyroid. Thyroid is so critical because it enables the cells, mitochondria, the power plants within the cells. It activates them so they can produce energy. High energy production means you're going to have a high voltage. You want to be a high voltage individual, not a low voltage individual. You want to be high voltage. You want to be a live wire, so to speak, not a slug around a part. You want to be the live wire. You've heard people say, well, look at that person, they're a live wire. Well, that really goes back to this energy production. Our body produces electrical energy. So you want to have a lot of electricity in your body. You want to have a high energy production so you're full of voltage. And that's important. Thyroid does that. Other things that can cause it, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone deficiency will adversely affect your body's ability to utilize the thyroid hormones. If you have yeast in your system, if you've had recurrent sinus and bronchial infections, and you've taken antibiotics over time, that will kill normal, healthy bacteria in the gut, and yeast overgrows. Women oftentimes will get female yeast infections, which can be cleared up, but you still have yeast in the colon, and that can cause what doctors refer to as irritable bowel syndrome, but it's really a leaky gut syndrome where you get inflammation in the lining of the colon, and the food particles pass before they're fully digested into the bloodstream, and you begin to have reactions to it, as well as some of the bacteria. And you begin to have reactions which can lead to autoimmune disease. And the toxins that are produced by the yeast can cause headaches, can cause brain fog, loss of mental acuity, lack of concentration. Another thing is poor diet. If you're on a high sugar, high carbohydrate diet, you're going to have sugar highs and sugar lows, and that adversely affects your ability to focus and think clearly. Food allergies are another thing, very common. Either wheat, corn, egg, milk, yeast, or soybean can cause a host of allergic reactions. They cause the release of histamine from your mast cells that line your mucosal membranes in your nose and down in your gastroesophageal tract. And the histamine is vasoactive and neuroactive. And so it can cause you to have problems with your ability to focus, to think clearly, to maintain your attention span. Vitamin and mineral deficiencies can also cause problems with brain fog. If you're eating a poor diet, not getting proper vitamin and minerals, particularly fish oil is so very important. I take at least 1 to 2 tablespoons of cod liver oil every day, plus some additional fish oil, plus fish oil tablets. That oil, which contains 2 essential omega-3 fatty acids, DHA and EPA, it's called I'm blanking on the formal names. That's why we use the initials.
An appropriate segment to be blanking on.
Yeah, I'm blanking on it. DHA is doxohexonic acid, and EPA is econosylpentoic acid. These are essential fatty acids that really are in your brain, and they allow your brain to properly function. Your brain's made up of cholesterol and fatty acids primarily, 90%. You need to have good cholesterol levels so the brain functions well. That's why statin drugs.
Yes,
Here's
great
the problem.
point.
Statin drugs will suck cholesterol out of your body, out of your brain, and it causes people to get global amnesia and a host of cognitive problems. So people that you get on statin drug and now you can't think clearly, you go to the doctor and he says you got Alzheimer's, you're on Alzheimer's drug.
Exactly.
They just stack one drug on top of another. So the prescription drugs, like the statin drugs, anti-anxiety medication, sleep medications, antihistamines, antidepressants, beta blockers that they use for blood pressure, narcotic painkillers, and muscle relaxants, all these can have an adverse effect on your ability to focus and think clearly. Physical inactivity, of course. If you're not physically active, you don't get good circulation. I always recommend that when we say physically active, I'm not talking about running a marathon. Just get out and walk a couple of miles every day. Smoking, of course, is a problem because you breathe in all kinds of chemicals in the smoke, and those are highly toxic to the body, and they also decrease your amount of oxygen you get, and that adversely affects your ability to think. And finally, artificial sweeteners. You know, the yellow and the purple and the pink packs and the blue packs, the Splenda and the NutraSweet and Equal. Splenda contains sucralose, which is a chlorinated hydrocarbon, which is highly toxic, and aspartame is in NutraSweet and Equal, and it's a neurotoxic substance as well. And both these things can have tremendous adverse effects on your brain cells and your ability to focus and think. So those are some of the key causes of brain fog and lack of mental sharpness and mental acuity and lack of the ability to concentrate and really focus. So if you're having these problems, you need to address them at the root cause and not let some doctor put you on a host of pharmaceutical medications, which in and of themselves are toxic and can further complicate your problems.
Absolutely. And a great way to end this podcast is with that wonderful photo of Terry Jaggers as promised.
Look at this. That's Terry Jaggers at 45 years of age, and she won the Mrs. Texas contest, and then 2 years later, Miss USA. She's drop dead gorgeous there, isn't it? And
Absolutely.
she was told she had Alzheimer's disease. It was going to have to be on medication, never be able to work again. So that's the difference, and that's what happened to Terry Jaggers. It can happen to you. It's a common occurrence here at the Health and Wellness Center where we help people who are, one, having significant health problems due to aging and the decline in their hormones and poor eating habits. It affects the quality of their life adversely, so they end up going to see a conventional doctor who doesn't treat the underlying cause but treats the symptoms with a host of prescription medications. And when we get them up on our program, we help them naturally obtain and maintain health and wellness without using prescription drugs, so they have a better quality of life, so really that they get their lives back.
That's our mission. That is absolutely our mission, and we've seen that happen hundreds of thousands of times, and we love to be able to serve you as well. So if you have been suffering from those symptoms and you want to do a 180 and take charge of your health naturally, then give us a call at 281-698-8698. That's 281-698-8698, because everybody deserves to have a health coach. Thank you for joining us today here at Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution.
Information provided on this radio program is neither intended nor implied to be a substitute for professional medical advice and is not intended to replace the services of a physician, nor does it constitute a doctor-patient relationship. You should not use information from this radio program to diagnose or treat a health problem or disease without consulting with a qualified healthcare provider. If you have or suspect you have an urgent medical problem, promptly contact a professional healthcare provider or call 911. Dr. Hotze's Wellness Revolution radio program advises you to always seek the advice of a physician or other qualified health provider prior to starting any new treatment or with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition. Any application of the recommendations from this radio program is at the listener's discretion.